we should get into AEW
Yeah.
Revolution, JP. So we do have the big card coming up on Sunday night, featuring some of the other names we just referred to there. We'll get to another couple of points from Dynamite as we go. But yeah, JP, you've got the betting odds as we go
Yeah.
as well. But yeah. Revolution, as we've talked about, is probably one of the better built AW cards overall, despite some last minute misgivings there, I think, and just in general, quite excited for it. Let's go through the card, and first up, JP, of course, speaking of that name. Uh, Chris Jericho is in an 8-man scramble match because we can't have a pay-per-view without Chris Jericho. This was the original Meat Madness match as Chris Jericho goes up against Lance Archer, Brian Cage, Powerhouse Hobbs, Wardlow, Hook, and two more names to be named over the weekend's TV. Could have still been the Meat Madness match. This, I think. It's just a matter of taste. But there we go. That's your 8-man scramble, replacing what the Revolution Face of the Revolution ladder match.
Oh yeah.
We once had. I guess that's there. Is it even for the title shot? I don't know if they officially said
I
that
think
yet.
it is.
The
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I don't know. Any guesses on who comes out of this thing? Is Jericho being a red herring?
I think he has to be a red herring for this. I mean, the person you'd have win because of story and canon would probably be Wardlow. That would be like kind of the one of the people you would kind of go with. The other two, I'm expecting it to be Magnus. Although are they going to cope if Penta manages to get through? Because obviously he's involved in one of the other ones. But no, we'll probably get Brian Keith on there because we can't have a show without Brian Keith. Again, you always say. Who's Tony looking at in the format sheet? It's not just Chris Jericho he has to have on there. It's like, what are we doing with Brian Keith this week? And maybe he'll end up on there. This is a match. As soon as the Meat Madness stuff wasn't going to happen, I wouldn't have had this match on there at all. I'd almost prefer Powerhouse Hobbs and Wardlow just to be really pissed off in weeks to come, just about them being off there and it's going on kind of like their own little independent rampages, pardon the pun. Instead, who's going to? I'll say Wardlow, but really, fuck knows, because it feels like it's been entirely changed around this entire time. Wardlow or Hobbs would be the two that I would be looking for on here.
Yeah, I think it's probably got to be one of the lads who was originally supposed to be in the Meat Madness match. I think I'll go with Wardlow.
There isn't any betting odds on this, according to Sky Bet, who I'm going through on here. But they had originally, when there was the 3 announced for the Meat Madness match, they had Wardlow at 20-1 on, and they had Powerhouse Hobbs at 6-1, Lance Archer at 16-1, which would suggest to me that they were wanting to do something with Wardlow, and that he would still, if and when the odds get updated for this, that Wardlow would still be the bookie's favourite.
Probably makes sense, and yeah, they got to give that fucking stable something, haven't they? Because Jesus fucking Christ.
But there is a big. I was going to say, yeah, you have to give the stable something, but it's also there's that bigger problem here is of that, and we're going to go into the other matches which are kind of like have had storyline build for all of them, and it just makes me think if we got rid of this, you'd be saving yourself 20 minutes to half an hour with entrances and everything else. And that time could be better used spreading and pacing some other stuff out rather than having another match in there. Because that is my only one fear for this card is there is so much stuff on it that is there going to be an overkill? And are we going to, is stuff going to just sort of like merge into one after a while and we're not going to remember bits of it? But it's definitely the thing that I'm sort of almost least looking forward to on this card by a country mile.
I think we got it in the right place in the rundown. Throwaway opener, I think, is what you get there. And yeah, like I say, maybe I'd be better use the time to have Wardlow just spend 5 minutes explaining to me why he hangs around with Adam Cole now. Still don't really fully understand that. But then, the less of them on TV, the better. Going from that, next matchup, FTR versus Blackpool Combat Club, which is Claudio and John Moxley. Didn't really talk about that when we talked Dynamite, JP. Have they got you interested in this one? I'm quite lukewarm on this match. It's like... and I think it's a me problem. I always say it about Blackpool Combat Club. it's a taste thing. I just don't enjoy the fake hard man stuff, especially when they're kind of forced to lean heel, which is what they've been having to do in this FDR feud, because you are kind of up against it, I think, when trying to get crowds to legitimately boo John Moxley. But yeah, who's the hardest man in AEW is basically what this match is, and I expect some kind of stip to get added along the way, JP.
Yeah, for this one, I'm probably higher on it than you. Not necessarily, because I didn't mind the tag match between them.
It'll be a good match.
20-minute time limit, and I expect it to be a good match. It's how much of this match are we going to really remember? But I also like the idea of, like, in terms of a tag team division, if you're not doing anything with like kind of your bigger single stars, that you can put them together in tag teams to have like kind of matches like this. I don't mind that as a filler. However, if they're doing this was my thought on this when the announcement about maybe there being a pay-per-view next month in terms of AEW Dynasty for April, this would be the kind of match that'd be perfect for that show as opposed to necessarily like for this one. I expect it to be decent. In terms of where it goes, I mean, again, I'm just going to go to the betting odds for this. Blackpool Combat Club are slight favourites, 11-8 on, and FTR evens, which again, sort of, this is a point that Gareth brought up, and I know I've been kind of particularly big on this as well myself, is it's one of these matches where it can go either way. There are like, there is an element of doubt to so much of this card. I mean that doubt in a good way, in that it's not as obvious and telegraphed in a lot of places what exactly is going to happen. And I think that in and of itself makes this match interesting for me, that they're like, surely you'd think to yourself, depending on the main event, if Bucks end up winning, do you then go to Bucks FTR again? Do you want to go to Bucks Blackpool Combat Club? I mean, you'd imagine this feels like a sort of de facto number one contender to the tag team title, particularly with the rankings coming into effect. That sort of should be the position. I think that's really where the interest lies for me in this one.
Yeah, if that's a point that I hadn't really thought about. That if you wanted to have Claudio and Moxley go against the Bucks next, then a win against FTR heats them up. I was just thinking FTR go over because they're an established tag team. However, you have got the counter argument of John Moxley doesn't tend to lose wrestling matches, so I think I'm now leaning towards that. So yeah, you've talked me into it, JP. I'm going Blackpool Combat Club. Whereas I think I came into this saying FTR. Up next, Christian Cage versus Daniel Garcia. Again, another one that's been quietly really well built for me. Very much enjoyed, as we've talked at length over the last couple of months or so, the Daniel Garcia rehab project. Again, on the conference call, Tony Khan put over Daniel Garcia and how high he is on him in a way that sounded like they're about to strap the lad up. And it would be a nice way to complete that story. Cope is conspicuous by his absence. Don't know what's going on there. I thought he'd be playing more into the drama of this match in the run-in. So I don't know if there's again some kind of a twist or turn coming there. But yeah, I like it as a match for Daniel Garcia. I think I'd actually almost prefer Christian Cage to keep the belt, because I just enjoy Christian Cage as TNT champion. But if it's a prediction, I think I'd go with Daniel Garcia. I think Tony, he's back in his good books, and I think they want to, after the good work that he's done, I could see them putting the belt on him as a reward here.
Well, it's interesting because the bookies will go against you for this. They've got Christian Cage as quite a clear favourite, like 11-4 on. Really? Again, not overwhelmingly by wrestling betting.
Better get the money out.
Exactly, and Daniel Garcia is 15-8, and it makes me think, well, because there's a number of ways. Because I'm expecting a screwy finish, and I did want to give actually a shout out in terms of like an in-ring highlight for Dynamite this week. I thought Nick Wayne versus Orange Cassidy was quite good. I thought Nick Wayne was like, he is coming on. He's very much a work in progress. Lad's only young. But I thought for this, like, in some ways, it is, do we get Cope out there effectively preventing Christian Cage doing his kind of like managing to kind of steal the victory and the rest of it? Garcia gets to win, or does that interference backfire and we start to get towards a Cope heel turn, dare I say it, which feels like his WWE run where he comes in, isn't a business mover, fuck it, let's turn him heel, because that's just what we're going to end up doing. It feels like a series of direction, like what is Matt Menard's role in all of this? It feels like there's going to be some sort of event like that happening, but the one I want to see is because Christian Cage has done a great job with the TNT title. Where do we go after this if he does end up retaining? Which is why my instinct is to say that Daniel Garcia wins, which I know flies in the face of the bookies odds, but I'm with you on this one. And I think Garcia, you get a TNT champion, and if you want to properly build him, you can have him just having like effectively doing what Orange Cassidy did for the international title. You kind of want Daniel Garcia in that role as like your workhorse champion for that. You can move Christian Cage to then being in and around like having perhaps some another match with Adam Copeland, which I know seems like absolute hell to you. And there are other belts that he could end up going for in the meantime. And it feels like you do all this work with Daniel Garcia after the Continental Classic, after moving him away from Jericho and everything else, that it makes sense for him to go about and win this. So I'm going to go with you. I'm going to say Daniel Garcia.
Next up, Takeshita and Will Ospreay. My prediction on this is less about who's going to win it and what's going to happen. I think it's almost nailed on Ospreay turns face, and I think it's almost nailed on Ospreay wins because he's coming into AEW full time, and they want to give him a strong start, as we talked about. That I think he got with the promo segment on Dynamite. The match, though, my prediction is 4.5 stars as the floor. It's weird. This match is hiding in plain sight. I think we all know logically this is going to be fucking incredible. And again, this is one where the build's probably not going to matter when it comes to the bell ringing and them going out there. But I don't think we're all paying enough attention to how likely great this is going to be and how much. I think this match, it's quite a low level talking point going into the pay-per-view. I think it's going to be 1A or 1B talking point coming out of the pay-per-view. That's how good I think this is going to be.
Yeah, again, sounds boring this when we agree with each other on it, but I'm with you on this. And the betting odds reflect, Ospreay's winning, bar some sort of catastrophic injury situation. 50-1 on. Takeshita's 9-1. He's winning it. And again, predicting it as well, obviously, that there is the Callis family turning on him afterwards as well. You're getting Ospreay coming in hot, baby face, like your best wrestler in the world. But if you look at the card, I suppose this is one of the things. This is the reason why this is on this, is to fill the great wrestling slot. But it's a great wrestling slot without a ton of storyline build to it. There's be other stuff that might feel more dramatic in terms of how it comes about. But this is very much like you say, it's in there to prove, no, we are the company with the best wrestlers in the world. And that's why you kind of sign Will Ospreay, isn't it? To have these kind of great matches. It's his first big match as an AEW full-time employee. He's obviously going to be going balls to the wall, and Takeshita's kind of a perfect opponent. I just don't want Takeshita to be kind of lost in the shuffle afterwards, which is part of what's happened with him.
Definitely, yeah. Ewan mentioned in the chat there, apparently it was supposed to happen at Supercard of Honor last year. I remember that being a news story. But you're right. I think Takeshita's kind of got, again, he's been lost in the shuffle as far as TV goes, and stands behind Don Callis a hell of a lot. But he's got some big scalps, the biggest scalps with Kenny Omega. So it is a bit of a shame we're at this point with him. But Ospreay needs credibility going into the company, and I think that's got to be the priority over Takeshita on this night. But I don't think it'll necessarily be the talking point. The talking point's going to be, we just saw a match of the year candidate last night, and I think that's the perfect way to introduce Ospreay to your company full time. It is a stacked card, this, isn't it? Because next up, remember the Continental title, / Strong title, / ROH World title, which has kind of been forgotten all this. Well, Eddie Kingston's defending him against Bryan Danielson. Another corker as a prediction from me again. I wasn't super excited when they started to lean towards it on Collision, that it was like, oh, we're going back to Danielson Kingston. I thought that had been settled during the Continental Classic. I wasn't sure there was more juice in this. I'm still not thoroughly convinced that it was the best plan, but when you just look at the black and white card and you look at like how stacked this is, it's because this match and matches like it have been stuck on here, and it's going to be fucking great. I assume Kingston's winning. I assume, because the handshake thing has become the deal, hasn't it? Rather than Danielson necessarily being that arsed about this very important Triple Crown. And again, that's a problem of the Continental Classic title, whatever it is, being defended after the show. I think that was very clearly a mistake at the time and continues to be a mistake going forward. But if I can leave that side out of it, Kingston and Danielson having a personal issue and going out there on a card like this, it's gonna be fucking great on the night, isn't it? So yeah, they might have turned me around just a little bit, I think, even if this wouldn't have been my plan a few weeks ago.
I think I'm perfectly fine with this being on there as well, because it feels like, I mean, again, the bigger story here is the Danielson's final year of full-time wrestling, isn't it, in here, which makes me kind of think this is why Eddie Kingston should win, although the bookies have it kind of close. And I still think there is that kind of slight element of doubt with it, because you just don't know. Like, and in many ways, the problem I've had with the Continental Crown is it's kind of distracted away, I think, from Eddie Kingston going for the world title, which is ultimately like a kind of a much bigger and better storyline to do with him. And instead, the idea that the Triple Crown is something that you get for winning the Continental Classic or something along those lines. That's part of my like issue with this in the main. It's just become another fucking title in a company full of fucking titles. So they've got like Eddie Kingston 3-1 on, Danielson 2-1. I'm going to say Eddie Kingston because that's really kind of where my head goes to there. But there is always that part of me that thinks, well, you know, they've got that Ring of Honor pay-per-view coming up in April as well, because that's, you know, Supercard of Honor, haven't they, for the WrestleMania weekend. It wouldn't be that surprising if they wanted to expand on it a little bit more and have like Danielson win this and have him kind of like going into it defending on that show as well. But then, yeah, I feel like he does the handshake. He's been leaning into the yes chance so much more now. Like he's just fully embraced that. That was something he obviously didn't want to go anywhere near, but he's completely embraced it in the meantime. So yeah, I'll say Eddie Kingston, but I still think on this one, I wouldn't be that surprised if Danielson ended up winning.
Next up, AEW Women's World Title, Toni Storm versus Deonna Purrazzo. As I said in the Dynamite section, I think they've done a solid job of building this one, a much more solid job than I think they have many women's programs in the company. Again, creatively not always been for me. I don't think it's all hit, but overall, is it a match with stakes? Is it a match that feels well built up? Is it a match that feels like an important part of the overall show? Tick, tick, and tick. I presume Toni Storm is going over, and I presume because everything in this women's division is, you know, holding pattern, waiting for Mercedes to come in. But I don't know. What say the bookies, JP? Is Deonna got a shout?
Bookies don't think she has a shout. And again, this goes in like 4-1 feels like, oh, you know, there's a fair chance for winning. No, in a 2-horse race, like Toni Storm 7-1 on. It also feels as well like you've got the plausible interference from Mariah May, from Luther, and the rest of it, and Toni Storm being set up then to be kind of squashed by Mercedes Moné feels like a direction they might end up going in. But they've done the job of at least establishing Deonna Purrazzo as a character on TV. It's not that I thought this has been a perfectly fine feud, but that's with the very low bar of how they book women's feuds in AEW, that they're not particularly great anyway at the best of times, and this is as good as it kind of gets. But in terms of making Deonna, like, is Deonna Purrazzo a worthwhile signing? Obviously, you know, I'm kind of pleasantly surprised that they've gone into her, like they've leaned on her so much, and they've kind of like spent a lot of weeks kind of like building to this and using the kind of storyline, the tattoo stuff in there as well. And I think that's kind of like it's been a decent feud. It's not been like kind of blow away TV, because the Toni Storm character is never going to really connect for me. That she's winning this, because I think her job is then she's a placeholder until Mercedes Moné, which I imagine will be that April pay-per-view. And frankly, you'd headline it with this. You'd headline Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné.
Might be the best opportunity.
Yeah, it'd be the best opportunity for them to do that, and almost like that's your big reset, then proper reset for the women's division, because ultimately the women's division is built around a comedy character.
Speaking of comedy characters, AEW International title up next. Orange Cassidy versus Roderick Strong. And speaking of matches, which probably don't need to be on the show. But that's the thing, though. It's a bit like, I mean, yes, it shouldn't be here. Yes, it's probably one match too many. But will it be good? Of course it will. It's Orange Cassidy, who's one of the very best wrestlers in the world, and Roderick Strong, who, multiple points in his career, I've genuinely thought has been up there with the best in the world. By his standards, I feel like he's slowed down a little bit the last couple of years, but still not that much. And a big spot like this on a pay per view, this might look like, and especially if it's slotted somewhere like here on the card, like the bit of the down moment of the show. I probably wouldn't expect that. I think this might be a real sleeper match of a sleeper hit of a match on the show. A presumable obvious Orange Cassidy win, but yeah, this might be something they if they place it right, might be one that on the quiet ends up being one we all end up talking about as well.
See, I agree with you in the sense I think this is going to be a really good match. I think this is going to be a killer of a match. What I would say though is that I think Roderick Strong's winning. I think that's really set up for him to win it. But I also think he's very much set up to win it. And the bookies would agree with me. 6-1 on Roderick Strong, and Orange Cassidy is 7-2. And I look at that and I think to myself, like, I can see why you've set up this stable, and whether you like it or not, what are you going to do? Like, it almost feels like you have to kind of go with, at some point, you have to put a title in this stable for them to have any kind of like substance there as well. And part of that substance is like, this is the most expendable title. And I think with Orange Cassidy, eventually you want to move him away from this title. You want to move him up the card, and you want to move him into like, whether it be, if it was him versus Samoa Joe on one of the probably will end up being B pay-per-views. I think that's a good option to go down if you were going to do that and you're wanting placeholder title defenses. So it feels to me like there's an opportunity here for them to, I don't think that stable is going to mean shit, Undisputed Kingdom. However, their mind is going to be put a title on them, put a title on Roderick Strong. There's a reason to have him on TV, have Orange Cassidy go for bigger belts at this stage because he's done as much with the international title as he could do.
Yeah, no, I could see it. You might start into another one there. Yeah, could happen that. Second from top, we assume, and it seems to be from the rundown we got on Dynamite. AEW World Title 3-way. I think we'll agree on this one. Samoa Joe versus Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland in the 3-way match. Yeah, as I kind of alluded to earlier, like I love the Page Swerve thing. I just love the fact that they constantly circling each other. If we're like 70% of the way there, maybe 80% of the way there to Hangman being the heel and Swerve being the face. There's a lot of people who are talking like Swerve's already the face. I mean, there is the caveat that Prince Nana's still his manager and Prince Nana manages a heel stable. But it is AEW too, and the Blackpool Combat Club exists, so maybe this is solidified as you're getting. But my prediction on the matches, I expect more solidified on who's the heel and who's the face in this scenario. I expect Hangman to do something dastardly. I expect Samoa Joe to retain, as we referred to earlier. And a lot of the logic there is I could just picture that some Hangman does something like taps out to cost Swerve the match, and I've heard that kind of I don't know how you'd do that, but maybe there's an agent somewhere who can come up with some kind of creative finish that makes it clear that Hangman Page lost just so Swerve couldn't win. I think that's probably the story they want to tell. It's a story you wouldn't get away with a world title match if it went on last and was the thing selling the pay-per-view. But it's not in this case, and that's the other reason why I'm actually all right with a 3-way here as well. So I think it's going to be something like that. It's going to be shenanigans, and yeah, I know there's a lot of people hoping and wishing and praying for Swerve to get the world title here, and I'm among them. I would like for Swerve to get the world title in 2024, but I think it's going to be a moment different from this. It's going to be some kind of big singles match. It's going to be some big standalone moment where the focus is on him and not the next match. So yeah, Samoa Joe retains, but I expect big movements in the Swerve and Hangman story to get us there.
Yeah, I think you've nailed kind of a lot of my opinions on this one as well. And the bookies would be in agreement with you and with us generally, which is Samoa Joe's 12-1 on to retain the title here. Swerve at 9-2, Hangman at 20-1. I mean, the fact that Swerve Strickland's been interviewed by The Athletic, I always find that quite interesting because that's like that's an entity that doesn't cover wrestling. Gets some stick for covering wrestling, frankly, at times, but they covered it and gave him a good, like, proper feature length kind of like interview as well. That's a baby face move if ever there is one. It's like this is the hot guy. In which case, you want that moment to really mean something. for that. That you want people to pay money specifically to see that, and that's not really what. Say they're not paying money for that. They'd like to see it, the fan base, but really it's the Sting retirement show. And because this has got second on top there, you can keep the belt on Joe for a couple of months. Do it a double or nothing. Like, I don't think that would be a bad move at all. And then you can get to that place. And I think my only issue is, and you've mentioned it there, is what is the kind of finish that works? Because how do you do a finish that keeps both Paige and Swerve strong and Joe wins without Hangman doing something like, I'm going to deliberately lose a world title match just to piss you off? That feels very fucking weird. And all the bells and whistles in the world of you need Pat Patterson around to come up with some sort of finish for
I
that.
can't come up
and
with
he's
it.
Not around.
I think he'll do it.
No,
but I can't come up with exactly how they'll do it, which is interesting in itself. Like, I want to see it. I mean, you could go the other direction, I suppose, if Hangman's full heel turn becomes because he walks out as champion. But no, I think it's going to be something like that. But I'm excited for it. And again, like you said, the unpredictability of at least how we're getting to possibly a predictable finish keeps it interesting, really. And
yeah.
Speaking of which, from there into our main event that we believe is going on last, which is Darby Allin and Sting against Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, the team that Gareth refuses to refer to as the Young Bucks. I'm with him on that one. And speaking of hard to call, I don't think they've done quite the job like a Rev Pro did, where they had Ospreay talk about he's gonna take the belt from Oku and they're gonna put it up in the very conveniently timed Rumble match that they had coming up. We haven't got that, so they haven't got as far to say, well, if Darby Allin and Sting win, well, there's going to be a tournament. But you believe that because it's a Tony Khan booked wrestling promotion, either that or a battle royal or a casino battle royal or something like that. But there's doubt here. Like, are they going to go for what is the obvious move, which is Young Bucks go over and Sting goes out on his back, which is probably the way Mr. Steve Borden is going to want to go out, or is there a chance that Tony Khan being nostalgic for Sting and wanting to have Sting have his nice moments on his way out, has Sting and Darby win? I think it's less likely than the Bucks winning, but I don't totally rule it out as a possibility. I'm kind of open for anything here. I say that to finish. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for all of it. I'm excited for the spectacle of it. I'm excited for Sting's presumably big entrance that they're going to give him if he gave away the the coming from the rafters on Dynamite. That makes me think they've got something else planned for this. I don't know what that would be, but yeah, they could come up with something better than WWE did for him when he did that one WrestleMania. I would at the very least hope for. But yeah, I expect a lot of pomp and circumstance here, and I expect a nice moment at the end, win or lose for Sting, because that's what sold the tickets here. That's why this is a sold out pay-per-view with 16,000 people at it, and it's why it's gonna do good business altogether.
And if you want to see what 16,000 people looks like, video viewers can see this is a sold-out Greensboro Coliseum behind me on video here, and it looks pretty bloody spectacular. Now, am I right in thinking Davey Portman and Braden Harrington, Poison Rana lads, they're going to this? Like, they're talking about doing a 12-hour drive.
Yeah. I mean, 3.5 hours to London is fucking bad enough for me, 4 hours to London, Jesus Christ. Yeah, so they were thinking of doing that. Good luck to you, lads. Yeah,
couple of mentalists, but why not?
Takes it in the chat there, Andy Ogden saying they should pay for Seek and Destroy again. Yeah, I could absolutely see it. Can you get is a man called Sting available? Can we get that? Is that public? I doubt it's publicly available, but you never know. Find a way. Get that old instrumental you used to use in AEW still be there. Damn.
Oh my god! I'd be near tears if he came out to that. I expect actually, in terms of the entrance, has to do all the incarnations of Sting. So there'll be some indie wrestler who has to shave has to get a haircut like Surfer Sting and the rest of it as well. You have to get the incarnation.
Because I've seen a lot of the fancy booking I was doing when I was 13 in 1997 for when he came out at Starrcade, and I kidded myself that he was going to come out as Surfer Sting rather than be the Crow. I don't think we're getting that. Anyone who thinks that's really happening, it's not happening. But yeah, indie guy dressed up as it. Maybe Jeff Jarrett can get his Sting costume out again, and he can do it. I don't know. What's Mr. Kennedy doing? He's done a Sting impression too. Yeah, I think a lot of that. Yeah, with I think that the chat have nailed it. There's going to be some kind of big song, and there's going to be, like you said, a lot of that, a lot of tributes to his past. I expect front row of people of Sting's past are knocking about, pulled out the woodwork. I think there's going to be a Lex Luger type people like that are going to be in attendance here. I think you could definitely say that it's going to be a spectacle as much as anything, isn't it? And that's kind of what I'm excited about, as much as, again, I'm intrigued by what they do with the match.
That's it. And I think when it comes to the match itself, I mean, you look at the odds, the Bucks are favourites, 7-2. And logically, and I was thinking about this, I was like, well, actually, Sting has never put anyone over per se. As much as I have railed against the Young Bucks for a long time, I should just say the Jacksons at this stage for such a long time, the idea of them being a complete couple of dicks, which they haven't always succeeded at in this feud, as soon as they've started to talk, but them being dicks saying we ended the career of Sting and just repeating that ad it infinitum and having like a pissed off Darby Allin after them as well.
You'd believe
find another partner. That would be the kind of stuff that would actually kind of work better as a heel act. I mean, Sting and Darby Allin are 9-4 here, which isn't necessarily a bad shout if you want to go in that direction. And then you have
it with a couple of these long odds.
Have a tag team audience, and I like Simon shouting the chat about Barry Windham as Sting there as well. I just can't help but feel it's like
Jim.
what would he want? I know this is the funny thing. Normally, the idea of a man in his early 60s who's had this 3-year run with the company hasn't actually been pinned or submitted over that period of time. You'd think we'd just be kicking off like he's behaving like Great Muta and Noah or something like that. But actually, the way that they've done this and the way they've made it succeed is just by tailoring a match for him to go kind of batshit, and he does some crazy stuff and he ends up winning, and everyone's perfectly fine with this. It does make me think it does make me think that maybe they'll do something where they're about to kill Darby Allin at the end and he just basically goes in and takes the blows, and that is the thing that ends up defeating him. And that maybe there's that element he sacrifices himself for Darby Allin, and that's where you get your kind of bigger pathos. Because I'm sure he's thought through how he wants to end this. So that's why I'm going to say that the Bucks are going to win. But I don't say that with a degree of certainty and like I should do for a match like this, where you think you would imagine him saying, right, you need to put someone over. Someone needs to take that heat of having ended your career. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Bucks, but not with the degree of certainty that I would have liked to. And if you fancy like a kind of just going for outsider bets, which in wrestling betting terms is always pretty tricky, I think Darby Allin and Sting to retain isn't the worst shout.
Yeah, I lean Bucks, but I definitely see it happening. Overall, though, I think they've done this perfectly. I think this is the perfect way to end Sting's career. The other thing about the show, Darby Allin's going to go out there and do something fucking daft. Sting's probably going to go out there and do something daft. Last time, and he's done some fucking crazy things a few weeks ago, on Dynamite. He's going to probably... Darby's probably had that one mad idea that Sting's gone, no, but maybe in my last match, I could see something like that, coming out. I'm excited to see it. I really am. And yet they've threaded the needle on this really well. I think this, there might have been fantasy booking of like singles matches for Sting or his last match or doing something with Darby. This was the right call from the start, I think, and I think adding the belts to it was a really smart call. I actually didn't see that coming because it felt so close to the match to just randomly put the belts on Darby and Sting, but it was absolutely the right call to do that. Probably going to be the right call for the Bucks to walk out with it as well. And yeah, I think it's just a really well done bit of business. It's we wanted to see Sting's retirement at Wembley, but we're getting it on an AEW pay-per-view instead. So yeah. I'll take it. And it's like I say, it's even those quarter hours on Dynamite show, there's a lot of interest in this. The tickets shifted show, there's a lot of interest in this. And I bet you the pay-per-view numbers we get after Joe that too.
And I think the one thing they have to do is they need to be giving Sting this needs to be ending probably with a good 10 minutes left of what the show would be, because you need to have do not rush off. He
said he's not going to be on Dynamite again. That was his last Dynamite this week.
Yep.
We can't AEW it. We can't to the back. We can't 10 seconds of airtime left and then we're gone. Nope. I know Tony Khan's got the money. I'm sure he'll be paying for it. This moment needs to sink in. That we need. Yep. You're absolutely right. We need at least 10 minutes of something, win or lose.
Even if it's like Ewan says there in the chat, Luger, Steamboat on Flair, all of the kind of old lads, all getting in the ring, giving him a hug, put him up on the shoulders. The big hug with Darby Allin is that's
Yeah,
part of also what you want to see as well. So I think
totally.
like you need to have that moment. You need, because that's what the crowd is going to want. That's what the crowd is going to kind of expect. That at the end of the match, if nothing else, you're going to get the big emotional. And El Hio's the Steve need to be on this show as well, getting involved physically as well.
Give them a spot. Yeah,
Fuck
a few people in the chat saying, yeah, apparently Tony Khan's gone back on it already, saying it was his last Dynamite as an active performer. To be fair, yeah, I did hear him say that, we might have him back one day to do stuff. So, yeah, I suppose you still could get away with having a send-off on, but I don't know as soon as this Dynamite coming up when you went so heavy on last week being his last Dynamite. I still think the pay-per-view will be the last time we see him, at least for a while, but yeah, excited to see it, and yeah, we'll be probably doing some Sting related content coming up on the Patreon as well in tribute to the great man Steve. But yeah, overwhelmingly, JP got a couple of other quick things to preview, but that looks like a banger of a preview. I'm going to be shocked if we're not praising it on Tuesday.
I'll be stunned. I will say, just with that one proviso, there is so much stuff on here that is some of it just going to merge into one another. That's my only fear, because I think they've done as good a job as I can remember with AEW for building to a pay-per-view, generally getting through the cycle in as smart and as logical way as possible. But at the same time, like it's stacked. It's a properly stacked show. And I know this is, it's probably the fear in me that I just kind of want them to nail it. I just want them to start off like, this is the first pay-per-view of 2024. Just fucking nail it. Like, nail this as like a proper, like, oh, what a great show. So
it's been a reset period this last while, AEW, and it's not always been tremendously exciting, but there have been great shows along the way. It's been functional, and it's been largely good. This is just a way to cap that off, I think, and we can push forward from here and just pretend the latter half of 2023 never happened. But on that note, JP.